Advocating for Your Child by the Autism Support Network. This video is going to discuss how to advocate for your child in the classroom, but it's also going to give you a template for advocating just about anywhere else. For example, Ministry of Children and Family Development, or Community Living BC, CLBC, or perhaps with Parks and Recreation, whatever. So hopefully this will give you a template of how to advocate anywhere. Before you watch this video, could you please watch ABA in Schools? This is also a video by the Autism Support Network, and this will show you what kinds of solutions that you can offer when you're trying to advocate for your child. It's very important you understand what is possible for your child in a classroom or in a Parks and Recreation event or in anything else, perhaps in a home where they're going to live. During this talk, I'm going to first of all talk about what is the solution that you could be asking for with respect to getting help for your child with autism. Understand legal precedents that have been set with Hugo and Moore lawsuits. I'm going to talk about language you can use when you're advocating. One of the phrases is instructional control, and another one is meaningful collaboration. I'm going to talk about how to write focused letters and move up the chain in command. I'm going to talk about giving deadlines for those letters and being able to escalate if necessary, and finally joining parents to make a systemic change that makes the world better for your child. So first of all, what might a solution look like? Once again, it's really important that you've seen the video ABA in Schools. If you're new to applied behavior analysis, you might also want to watch the Welcome to Autism videos. Really find out everything you can about ABA before watching the rest of this video. It will be very helpful. Okay, so here's what some solutions might be. You might want to request somebody trained in applied behavior analysis, and this would include someone from your own home team. You might want your child's consultant to train someone that's working with your child, your educational assistant. You might want to change the educational assistant so that you can get somebody who will have better instructional control over your child. You might demand that behavior programs be part of the individual educational plan. That's IEP, individual educational plan. You might insist that data is taken so that the behavior consultant can make decisions on programming. You might want to keep an educational assistant who is at risk of getting bumped by another educational assistant due to seniority. You might want the district to hire a board-certified behavior analyst so that your child can do better. So a board-certified behavior analyst would be able to write programs that would help your child learn better and reach their full potential. So if you don't have one working with your child in the home, it would be helpful if the district had one working for them. If you are dealing with MCFD or CLBC, you might want to request respite funding for your family. You might want to request preschool support worker who has ABA experience, or you might want to request an ABA residential home. There's many, many other things that you might need to request. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to talk about the Hugo decision. The Hugo lawsuit started in year 2000. 40 parents got together and pitched in $5,000 each to support a lawsuit against a school district. And that turned out to be a Hugo child versus the Abbotsford School District. Now, the Hugo child was doing applied behavior analysis at home, and he was under good instructional control and was learning things. Then he went into school where he was not allowed to do applied behavior analysis. So during that time, he regressed a lot. His behavior started getting a lot worse. He was not learning. Finally, the parents took him out of the school, and back at home, he was doing applied behavior analysis. And once again, he started doing a lot better. And he got so good, they thought, okay, maybe we're ready to put him back in the school system. They put him back in, and the school district would not allow them to keep someone with AB training with the child. And so the child regressed once again. So this was a very clear case of A, getting good treatment, B, not getting treatment, A, getting good treatment again, B, not getting good treatment, and what happens when that happens. So the outcome of that decision was that your child should be under instructional control at school. And you might even argue this in if you're trying to get good quality care for your child in community living BC, in a home or something. This could be argued there as well. And then the second thing is this: the school must have meaningful consultation with the child's home team. That means the behavior consultant, anybody else at home that's working with the child, and for sure the parents. So what is instructional control? Instructional control is any behavior that you want your child to do. Your child should be able to do it. So every ABA program is an instruction for your child, and whoever's working with your child should be able to get your child to do the instruction that's in that ABA program. You want someone to be with your child that's going to be successful through that ABA program. And success might look like non-aggression towards others. It might be eating properly, writing paragraphs, playing tag, whatever it is the ABA goals are. This you should be able to see this happening at home as well as at the school. So here's an example, great example of instructional control at the school. There was a ABA support worker with experience in ABA working with a child. She had to go out and meet with the behavior consultant. And during that time, an educational assistant who did not have as much instructional control was with the child. The teacher wanted the students to make a little story and then a picture with it. And so this is what, on the left side, this is what the child had done. When the ABA support worker came back from talking with the consultant, she said, oh no, he can do way better than that. So she had the child give an example of what he was actually quite capable of doing, writing a lot clearer, doing a much better picture. So this is an example of the ABA support worker having much better instructional control over the child, and getting the expectation is that the child reaches their full potential there. Okay, so if your child's academic work is better at home than it is at school, then that is an example of the district not having instructional control over your child. If you find your child spends an unreasonable amount of time disengaged in the classroom, or even actually out in the playground. So if you pop in and into the recess time and your child's just playing all by themselves in a corner, then that is really not, he's not really engaged in the way he should be during recess time. So another example of not having instructional control. If the child's aide is unable to consistently maintain control over the child so that the curriculum can be delivered, or if your child's aide does not have familiarity or training in ABA. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about meaningful consultation. This is the second part of HUCO, second part that came out of HUCO. Now, HUCO mostly talks about what is not meaningful consultation, because there was lots of examples of this with the HUCO situation. So I'll just go through some of them, and there was a lot of them, so you can look for even more. Not an example of meaningful consultation is when districts just list their options as the only choices. It's not when they say they'll do something and then they don't, or they don't follow up on something they say they're going to do, rejecting things out of hand. Intimidation. The district should not be intimidating you. That is not meaningful consultation. If the district acts without informing the parents, for example, calling in other autism specialists to work with the child, that should not be happening without the parents know it. If the district says they have some district philosophy and they won't consider what you want because it doesn't fit with their philosophy. If the district sets strategy for meetings beforehand, before you've come in, they already know what's going to happen. Or if they reject the parent's request before even hearing them or understanding them. And if they recommend interventions that are not evidence-based. So this is actually quite common. For example, there's recently the snoozle room is the biggest buzz thing out there. Snoozle room was a room full of sensory stuff. So it's really just a fun room to be in. There's lots of buttons to push and lights and things and bean bags and stuff like that. So all these schools thought, oh, autism, we got to get snoozle rooms because that is being marketed right now. There is no evidence to show that snoozle rooms are actually really helpful for children with autism, but they all started getting these snoozle rooms. The problem is a child would start to misbehave, would start to throw a tantrum. And so the district personnel thought, ooh, he's starting to tantrum. We need to get him to the snoozle room. So they bring him to the snoozle room, and lo and behold, he stops tantruming. He's very happy. He's in the snoozle room now. Well, what they did was they just reinforced that tantruming behavior by rewarding it by taking him to that snoozle room. So the snoozle room can actually work against what is necessary for the child. Now, a good use of a snoozle room, they are fun to be in, is you might have a child working for being able to go to the snoozle room and have breaks there. So again, it's important that the district is not suggesting interventions that do not have the scientific research to back them. And then also the failure to include any recommendations from the home-based team, and failure to have a trained educational assistant that knows how to deal with children with autism. Oh, we keep going. To leave parents and home-based team from providing input into a new EA, so not being able to help decide who should work with the child, to schedule meetings without trying to accommodate the home-based team. So for example, they'll say, we're gonna have an IEP meeting on Monday afternoon, and you need time to see if your behavior consultant can get to that meeting, and they should be able to accommodate that. Having secret meetings before a Section 11. I'm going to talk about what a Section 11 is later, but when you're going to have a Section 11, they should not be discussing things beforehand so that they can counter whatever it is you bring up at the Section 11. They should not be sharing information with the board that they're not sharing with the parents. Again, I'll talk about this in Section 11. They should not refuse you recording a meeting or a hearing. You should be able to make a recording of it. You should be able to take minutes, make notes of a meeting. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the Moore decision, which came out in 2012. And this went all the way up to Supreme Court of Canada. In North Vancouver, the district did not accommodate the needs of a student with dyslexia. What happened was the student had a program that helped the child be able to learn to read and write in, even though he had severe dyslexia. And the district suddenly decided to cut that program. And what's interesting is they didn't cut lots of other programs. They cut this program that affected this child's ability to learn in the school district. And in fact, they say that this program was the ramp that provided access to the statutory commitment to education for all children in BC. So they cut that program, but they didn't cut things like outdoor education and stuff like that. So they found that they discriminated because this intensive remediation was cut while other programs were not. So once again, keep in mind when you're going to ask that your solution for your child be met, that you have the right for instructional control of your child, you have the right to meaningful consultation, and through Moore, the district must consider choices before removing barriers to learning. Okay, so how to use them? Well, first of all educational administrators, not necessarily principals, but definitely superintendents, are aware of HUCO. They get educated in that whenever they go to their annual professional development. We know this because we know some of the people that were educating them on this. So they know about HUCO and about Moore. They may try to act as if they don't know about it. So it's important for you to show them that you know HUCO and Moore exists, even if they don't. If you're having a problem with your child in school, think about how this problem is a violation of HUCO or Moore. That will make your argument easier to make. It's important to be able to clearly point out which of your child's rights are being denied. So HUCO and Moore is very important to get to know. We have both of these decisions on the Autism Support Network website if you look under schools. You can use Hugo and More to fight for your own child, or you can use it for trying to get systemic change so that you get a school district to make changes that all children would benefit from. Okay, keeping a paper trail. When you put things in writing, it's very important that you be professional and you communicate clearly. Try not to get into bashing. Just be very professional. If possible, get somebody else to read what you're about to send to just get a second opinion. So you want to clearly state clearly state what you are requesting, then get into why it's important. So the very first sentence should get to the point of your solution. Then why is it important? Principals and superintendents have lots to do. Your child is not the only child with issues going on. So when they get a document, they need to be able to figure out really quickly, what is this document about? I have sometimes helped parents write letters, and I get a letter that goes on and on and on about all the problems they've had at home and what's been going on and how terrible things have been and how hard the parents have worked. And by the time I get to the end of the letter, I actually have no idea what this parent is asking for. I don't think the parent even knows what they're asking for. So it's really important that you know what your problem is and you state that right at the beginning. In fact, not so much the problem, but what is the solution to the problem, that you state that first thing. When you do write or get involved with things, make sure you pick your battles. If you go after every little tiny thing, when something really important comes along, they will think it's part of all those little tiny things. So sometimes you just got to bite your tongue, and when something really important comes up, that's when you step in and get involved. So if you ever have meetings in person, it's important that you practice ahead of time so that you stay on message. Recite over and over again what it is you want, what is your solution that you want, and make sure that they don't sidetrack you. If you're emotional or you think you're going to lose track of what it is you're going to say, bring someone with you that also knows that message and helps keep you on track. And even I have done that. I consider myself quite a good advocate, but when I was getting my son into a home as an adult, I had to do a lot of advocating for that. And I think having somebody with me that understood my son's situation made all the difference. I was just ready to give in, and having somebody there make it clear why it's important we get what we needed, that was that made all the difference. So try to get somebody with you when you go into any meetings. Okay, so here is an example of a letter that you might a letter that you might write. This is my son at such and such elementary will require an aide who is well trained in applied behavior analysis, or ABA. It is imperative that his aide be able to maintain instructional control, allowing his optimal opportunities to learn. So right away in the first sentence, we're getting to what is important here. Then they're going to give the background of why this is extremely important for this child. And notice at the bottom, they give a deadline. So please get back to me by such and such date, whatever. And then you might even want to mention that you're going to move up to the next person if you don't get what you want from this person. Or you might CC the next person in the hierarchy in this letter so that they know that's where you're going to go next if things don't get done. Here is an example of requesting an ABA. Requesting ABA programming for the child. So it might be the child has an EA that's willing to do ABA, but you want to make sure a particular program gets done. So, dear Mr. Smith, I'm requesting a meeting with yourself as well as the educational assistant by this date to discuss how lunch protocol set out in the IEP will be implemented immediately. So in this case, if the child did not eat properly at school, he comes home and things are just a mess. So it's really, really important that they use the protocol in the in the ABA program or in the IEP that this child eats properly. Okay, so just to recap, keep everything in writing. Take minutes of IEP meetings, teachers' meetings, meetings with principals, resource teacher. Email those minutes within a week. So write down, even if you get home and you write down everything, email your understanding to whoever was leading that meeting. And if that person denies it, they'll get back to you right away and say, no, this is not what I said. If they don't respond to you, then you can assume that this is exactly what was said in that meeting. This is really important, because if you don't take notes and put it in writing right away, and then 2 months later, they don't do what they said they were going to do, you don't really have anything to stand on. They can just say, we never said that, which is another reason why you also want to bring someone else with you into a meeting. So make written accounts of conversations, always, everything in writing. Now, if you're told no, if you want a different EA and they say no, you say, I want that put in writing, and I want who it was that made that decision. Who is it that said no? Because that gives you the right to go to a Section 11. Section 11 is going to be about taking to the school board a decision that you don't agree with. So you need to know who is it that didn't agree with you, and in writing that they actually said no. Don't forget to use a deadline whenever you're making requests, okay? And then lastly, be willing to escalate if your child's needs are not being met. If they think you're just going to go away, they will probably not do what you're asking them to do. So you have to make it clear to them that you are going to be escalating if things don't go your way. So start with the teacher or the educational assistant if you can. Usually you have to talk to the teacher before you can talk to them anyway. And then move your way up from there. Focus on your goal. Don't let the district sidetrack you. So here is a hierarchy that you usually want to go through. Classroom teacher, then maybe the principal. And by the way, at any of these levels, you might be dealing with something where the classroom teacher and the principal are on board, but it's actually the district administration that's preventing something. So you might have to start there. And then the superintendent. And then if the superintendent says no, does not back what it is that you want, you would do a Section 11, which I'll talk about in a minute. And if at the same time, or if Section 11 doesn't work, you might start a human rights tribunal. Now, I want to talk about two other things you might have to do. You might need to hire a lawyer. This is very expensive, but you might be worth it just to get someone on retainer so that you can CC your letters to the lawyer, and that makes the district understand that you actually mean business, that you know what your rights are, what lawyer is going to help you understand your rights. Now, media is another issue, and you've got to debate whether this is a good situation. And in fact, if you feel you might need to go to the media, you might want to work with other parents on the Autism Support Network's Facebook page. Find other parents that support what it is you want, and then you might have a good media story, and that might help get what you need. Okay, so Section 11, if an employee has made a decision that significantly affects your child's education, it is not what's going to work, then you have the right to appeal that decision to the school board. That is the elected school board members. So the school boards are elected. The administrator, like the superintendent, they are paid employees. So the elected board, you make this appeal to the board, and the board must make some decision on that. Now, my experience with school boards is you go make a presentation, the school board goes to the administrators and say, oh, this is what this parent was saying, how come we're not doing this? The school district responds back to the board. The problem is the parent doesn't know what that response is. The board usually just gets back to you and says, nope, we're not doing this. So it's important, you have the right to be part of that discussion. So if they're going to discuss with the administrators in the school district, you should be part of that discussion by rights. Now, Human Rights Tribunal, very different thing. This is really about human rights. This has to do with any kind of human rights, not just school issues. Here's the website where you can learn how to start a human rights case. Often, if you just start a human rights tribunal, you will get what it is your child needs right away. that is quite often the case. You want to connect with other parents, once again on the Autism Support Network Parent Closed Group in Facebook. There are other parents that have done human rights tribunals, and they can help you. From what I've heard, it's helpful to hire a lawyer if you're going to go through a human rights tribunal. We've had 2 cases that I know of. I think there's a third one actually on the horizon at the point of this video. One case, a parent filed a human rights tribunal because they had to move from Coquitlam School District to the Surrey School District in order to access ABA for their child. They knew that if they went to Surrey at that time, they were able to have one of their home team members hired into the Surrey School District, and that person worked for their child. As long as Surrey is in a position where they are have not yet met capacity for ABA support workers, pretty much if you have someone on your home team that has 1,000 hours and can go get hired by the Surrey School District, that person can go work with your child. And they have a lot of experience. This is very successful. It's awesome. So the parent went to Surrey so that they could have this, and it was successful. They got an ABA support worker for their child. So they went to the Human Rights Tribunal to argue this should not have happened. So the parent won. They cannot discuss what they got out of the settlement, but I can tell you for a fact that the district had to be educated in applied behavior analysis. So a group of us went there and presented to them. We had a consultant, an ABA support worker. My son was actually there. I was there to talk about it, and the teacher. So lots of people were involved in educating the Coquitlam School District about how successful the ABA support worker program can be. Now there was a second case, one by a parent who did not have an ABA support worker, but she had a very successful educational assistant working with her child. And she just wanted to keep that educational assistant. And every year, because of seniority, that educational assistant could get bumped. And so every year she had to ask or beg that she be able to keep the educational assistant that is working well with her child. Her child was quite affected and really seriously needed someone that understood this child in order to keep things good for this child in the school. So she did actually immediately, the school district agreed to let her keep her educational assistant, but they said that they were still going to get a dispute by CUPE. And so she kept the Human Rights Tribunal going because she wanted CUPE to understand that they don't have the right to make her go through this every year, pushing that they should be able to bump her educational assistant every single year when she makes a good case all the time to keep the one that she has. And eventually CUPE backed down as well, and they said it wasn't right what they did. Having said that, they still bump, and parents are still fighting and making human rights tribunals about this. So this is an ongoing thing. So if you're interested in, if you've got some issue that is really worth taking to human rights tribunal, do get in touch with other parents, and they will help you with the process. Now, if you do have to leave your child's school or your child's school district, please go loudly. Make sure the district staff know why you are leaving. Start a human rights tribunal case. Let media know, let MLAs know, because nothing is going to change in that previous school district unless people are complaining every time they have to go. Finally, districts will understand that they need to step up and listen to what the parents are asking for. Okay, so this is from the BC School Act. This is about student removal. So down here, this is in the School Act. Down here, it says the board must continue to make available an educational program for any student removed or excluded from school for health or safety reasons. So what this means is if your child's getting kicked out of school because of their behavior is a danger to other kids or whatever, or if you're having to pick up your child every day, or the child can only go to school 1 hour a day and you've got to stay home from work and pick up your child because of that, it's actually up to the district to provide an educational program for the child when they're not in school. So they're not allowed to just send the child home without providing an educational program. So this is something to keep in mind if you're in a situation right now where your child is not yet fully integrated into a school. By the way, if you are in that position where your child's only going to school 1 hour a day, that can change. If you have a really good applied behavior analysis program, that child will be able to be in the school full-time. I think no matter how difficult the child is, I think things can be done. ABA can really help children be able to attend school. And I know because I had a very difficult, my own son is very difficult, and he was able to attend and was adored by his classmates because we had great behavioral programs that helped him look like he was actually easygoing, but he wasn't. Okay, so this is, I'm just going to go over a couple of other documents that I think are important for parents to know are there, because I think sometimes you have to remind principals or superintendents that these programs are there. So this is from the BC Special Needs Student Order. In here on the number 3, there's a list of stuff they recommend. Collaborative consultation is a process where each participant's contribution is valued equally. This is where intimidation does not take place, right? Valued equally. You should feel like you are really being listened to. And it involves meaningful consultation with parents or guardians of students with special needs. Parents are entitled to be informed of a student's attendance, behavior, and progress in school. Parents have to be involved in the planning of the educational program. So that's right there in this special needs student order. Later on, parents should feel welcome and encouraged to contribute. So if you're not feeling this way, get this document and show them that they're not living up to what they should be doing. This is the Council of Administrators of Special Education. And in here it says the family is the expert on the child. Meaningful consultation, down here at the bottom, meaningful consultation is not the delivery of a preconceived decision or plan. So meaningful consultation in there. Okay, so that is ABA in schools. Advocate for your child and work with other parents to create a system in which all children can access quality ABA without having to fight for it all the time. Here's some examples of parents fighting or advocating for change. So first of all, there was the parent-funded lawsuits. Aughton in year 2000 was a lawsuit that actually, while it didn't win in the Supreme Court of Canada, it did win in BC. It did get the government to create the Autism Funding Unit. And so now autism treatment is funded in BC because of this, probably actually throughout Canada because of this. So that was a very important decision. Then there's HUCO, which I talked about, and Moore. So those were, well, Moore was a parent that was that funded their lawsuit themselves, but Aughton and HUCO were lawsuits that were funded by a group of parents. A group of parents got together and advocated until they got the Surrey School District's ABA Support Worker Program. And the parents were, in fact, involved in designing it and overseeing it. There's even an ABA advisory to the Surrey School District. So there's quite a formal process where parents can talk about systemic change, and then the executive of the advisory can talk with the district and help make those changes take place. There is human rights tribunals. Because of these two human rights tribunals, districts are much more on their toes, realizing they need to do what these parents are asking for, or else they're going to end up before a human rights tribunal. And any meetings that parents have between MLAs, members of parliament, school district staff, parks boards, any meeting that an individual parent has always moves us closer to be able to access quality applied behavior analysis wherever our children are. So do think about paying it forward and doing more than just getting what your child needs. Get what your child needs first, but once your child is taken care of, do what you can working with other parents to make sure all children get what they need. Okay, a little bit of research. It always helps to have research when you're advocating, when you're trying to make change. So there's an example here, the ICASETH study. This is another example down below, Howard Sparkman. These are two examples, but I'm going to go further into the ICASETH study. This is a study I used when I was making a case for the Surrey School District to get into ABA. This is a control group, treatment group study. This is like one of the best kind of studies because you have a group of students that are getting what all students normally get, which is generic one-on-one support. The treatment group is going to get applied behavior analysis, still one-on-one support. So both groups are basically the same, except that one of them is going to get applied behavior analysis one-on-one versus the other group that's going to get generic special education one-on-one. And by the way, the generic special education is exactly what we have here in BC. Okay, so in BC, most school districts do not do applied behavior analysis. They do a generic special education. So that's the control group. Both groups are grade 1 students that had autism. They were equally distributed. One-on-one support, keep that in mind. And the treatment group, it's called EIBI, but it was EIBI is the same as applied behavior analysis. So here's the results. The ABA or EIBI group compared to the control group did significantly better in adaptive behavior, expressive language. In fact, the control group got further behind their peers. The gap got larger for expressive language. Language comprehensive, the ABA group caught up with their peers, whereas the control group got further behind their peers. And IQ, the control group did start catching up a bit to their peers, but the ABA group did significantly better than the control group. So you can see the importance of a study like this. This graph, by the way, was made by me. It is not shown in the study, but I took exactly the numbers that were the results of the study. Just made a graph so it gives a bit of a visual. Okay, so advocate for your child. Join other parents to advocate for all children. Your child will be safer in a system that works for him or her. When you advocate, remember instructional control and meaningful consultation. Remember, things might be good now. Maybe you advocated and things, you got what your child needs for 1 year, but your child is in school for up to 14 years. So it is a good idea to advocate for systemic change instead of just taking it a year at a time. This is a movie out there that about two parents that wanted to change a system. So just a little bit of a something to enthuse you to pay it forward. And that's it for this talk. Thank you very much, and good luck to you.